I want to introduce someone that needs no introduction at all. So let's just go ahead right now and welcome Joey Santore.
Okay, all right. So today I'm going to show you guys plants. You know, we know the valley plants. We know a lot of them. And this is what got me into botany 10 or 15 years ago, was looking at the idea of variations on a theme, which is, you know, you come to know one plant, you develop a relationship with it, you like seeing it in your yard, you like seeing what pollinates it, or you like the fruit that comes off of it. You've seen it in habitat, you like walking around in the open spaces and wildlands where it grows. And then you start to see variations on it, other species in the same genus or related genera in the same family. Come here. Related genera in the same family that share a common ancestor. You could tell they're related. They got similar leaves, flowers, fruits, whatever, but they grow in different places and they've speciated differently. And this is kind of the wonder of evolution for me, and what makes traveling to look at plants so fun. I don't really travel to look at cultures. I'll dip my feet a little bit. Maybe I'll try some food if I go certain places. But the main reason I travel is to look at plants. It's to look at variations on a theme. It's to see what evolution has produced as a result of millions of years of a certain environment selecting for different traits. It's literally the environment that breeds the plant, right? The same way a human, you know, sows 100 tomato seeds and picks the 2 that didn't die during a frost, or 2 that can really take heat and humidity, and all the rest died from heat and humidity. It's the same thing that the environment does. And you can see what humans can do breeding cauliflower, broccoli, and kohlrabi, all from the same species, right? Those are just different ecotypes, basically, of the same species, Brassica oleracea. Or what humans can do with dogs, pugs, and Great Danes, same species, right? And nature can do that over millions of years. And so that's what we're going to look at today. And so if anybody's got any questions, don't raise your hand. Just belch it out. Just speak, you know. If I don't use common names, that's the other thing. I advise against it in most cases. You know, don't be intimidated by these Latin names. Just you learn the genus at least. Anytime you meet a new plant, ask what family it's in. You'll start to, and why do I advocate this? Because you'll start to notice similarities between the families. Oh, this is in Verbenaceae too. You know, this other plant I saw is in Verbenaceae, the verbena family. Oh, it makes sense. They have similar flowers, right? It's reproductive structures that give a clue as to what family it's in. It's just basic plant ID. You'll learn this simple phenomenon, you'll be able to identify plants anywhere over the world. So we'll start with Phyllonata flora. Everybody knows frog fruit, right? Wonderful plant, remarkably drought tolerant because it's been built by very hot, arid climates. And so at some point, a member of this made it to Chile, of this same species, Phyllonata flora, and you get this variety of reptans. You can see it's much hairier, it's got bluer leaves. It's still a frog fruit when you look up close, same flowers, same leaf structure, but it grows in the Atacama Desert, which is nowhere near as hot as the Rio Grande Valley, but it's much more arid. It's extremely arid. Many of these plants, their only source of moisture most years is from fog, because you have these cold ocean currents. If any of this is flying over your heads too or anything, just at any point, just feel free to ask. I don't mind. Interrupt me. I prefer to be interrupted. And there's the habitat. You could see it's growing in clay. That this plant is totally fine. It's doing great. Look at how dry that climate. There's nothing else growing around it for like 30 or 40 feet. I saw this when I was in Chile, and I said, I know this plant. That's amazing, but it's got much hairier leaves. It's the same species, but a different ecotype. It's been selected for by the Atacama Desert instead of Central Texas. Nice up close to the chalky mint color. Again, that chalky mint color is from the tiny hairs. Much more hairy, a fine layer of hairs, much more so than the South Texas species, Aristolochia erecta, swan flower or pipe vine. I don't know any of the other common names that are for it. I'm sure there's a multitude of them, but it's the same thing. It's a flower that traps insects. Everybody's probably familiar with these, right? We need to be growing more of these because they're the host plant for a really cool butterfly. The caterpillars just arrived on the plants in my backyard and totally denuded the leaves off of all of them. They'll re-sprout from the tuber, but I'll get to see pipe-bound swallowtail butterflies in a week, which is cool, so a week or two. Anyway, so Aristolochia erecta. Well, the genus Aristolochia has 300 species in it. There's Aristolochia erecta. This is from Stark County. This is Aristolochia californica. Same genus, different species. Flowers look the same. It's doing the same thing. It's trapping tiny insects in this flower. It uses hairs to trap them so the flies can't crawl out. It's mostly flies. That's why it's got this kind of mottling shape. It's this kind of like red. And they produce a very strange floral scent too. This is Aristolochia cordiflora. I saw this in Ecuador. Much more broad leaves because it's a much more humid environment. Ecuador is nowhere near as hot as the Rio Grande Valley, even though it's on the equator. The more I travel, the more I realize nowhere is really as hot as the Rio Grande Valley. This is the hottest place, one of the hottest places in the world. Nighttime temperatures, obviously, will still be 82 degrees at 6 a.m. in the summer. Phoenix has nothing on us. They might have individual hotter days, but they don't have more cumulative heat throughout the year. So same thing. It's this flower. It's got this mottling, and you'll see this on a lot of unrelated plants that produce flowers that are pollinated by flies. I don't know if it's trying to mimic something rotting, something disgusting. It's got kind of a starchy smell. But when you cut the flower open, like when I cut this one open, there were flies all over it. And so the floral structure, this is unique. It's called a gynostemum. Don't worry about remembering that. It's just kind of interesting what Aristolochia does. So these things get trapped in there, lured by the scent. They hang out for a day. They're held in place because this is the top of the little chamber they get stuck in. Or actually, it's the looking down, I think. And they can't crawl out. And then after a day or two, these hairs wither, and the flies can leave. They've got pollen on them. They go to another flower. It happens again. They didn't learn their lesson the first time. They get stuck in a flower. They pollinate it. They end up getting pollen on this surface right here, and a flower gets fertilized and produces a fruit with a bunch of seeds in it. But again, Aristolochia, 300 species. Another one, Cremeria ramosissima, one of my favorites from Stark County. It's definitely one of those plants you look at. This is what it looks like most of the year, and you're just like, it's just brush, whatever. And then when you see it, and it's in flower after a good rain, you'll also find astrophytum and a lot of cool cacti hiding under this, using it as a nurse plant. Really cool ecology there. And then when it flowers, you get this beautiful flower here with these modified petals. These are pollinated by bees that aren't looking for nectar. They're looking for oil to feed to their larvae. And that's the sole pollinator of Cremeria, is oil-collecting bees in the genus Centris. You can see the fruit right here. These are modified petals. These are the oil glands. And anyway, and there's the fruit modifying, or the fruit maturing. And it sticks. It's like a Velcro-like fruit. Cremeria has many species in it. This is our local valley one, ramosissima. I think you get lanceolata in Texas too. That's another one. See, there's it after a good rain. And then you get Cremeria cystoidea in Chile, which again, I had no idea this was a Cremeria. We were looking around and I came across this plant, and I saw foliage, but before I saw the flowers, and I said, holy hell, this is a Cremeria. That's wild. I didn't know they came down here. Slightly modified structure. You can see there's the stamens with the pollen on them. Here's those same 3 modified petals. And but it had like succulent foliage, and this is in the Atacama Desert right here. That's the habitat. A lot of really cool plants there. Again, most of the moisture here comes from fog. It very rarely rains. It's not as hot as North American deserts, but it very rarely rains. But you get these fog banks every evening. Plant that was growing sympatrically with it. Sympatric just means it's growing in the same habitat. Copiapoa. This was literally like 30 feet from where, God knows how old that is, probably a century or two. They grow so slow. The Hellraiser cactus. It kind of looks like, from the 1980s seminal horror film, Hellraiser. Very blue. There's my friend Matt. He's fun to travel with. He's good at song and dance. We frequently get Tourette's. We'll be looking at plants in the middle of nowhere, cursing to each other, singing nonsensical songs we made up. Anyway, Eulychnia is the species right here. Really cool cactus. So I just like thinking about how these plants you could tell that the connection is there. There's the lineage is there, but it's been millions of years since they last shared a common ancestor, but they've each speciated according to their different habitats. Again, huge clumps of Copiapoa. All right, Echinopsis abano, Texas ebony. It smells incredible when it blooms, gets the very characteristic fruits that look like a little piano keyboard when they split open. 3 species in the genus. And here's one that I encountered in Baja, Echinopsis confinus. They call it the dog poop bush. Another good reason, see, I'm kind of against common names. Dog poop bush, maybe I could make an exception for it just because it's hilarious, but I'm sure it would dissuade others from wanting to use it. You can see why. It does kind of look like that, doesn't it? It's been baking in the sun, you know, for a day or two on some concrete. Anyway, it's looks like it's from a little bit drier of a climate than ours. It doesn't get as tall. And Baja, I've been going to Baja for years. I've probably been there like 8 or 9 times. Lots of incredible plants there. And because of its isolation from the mainland, you get, I think, like 3/4 of the plants that grow on Baja are endemic, meaning they only grow in Baja. They don't grow, they've got relatives in mainland Mexico or even in California, but the species is so distinct, it's been isolated in Baja. It's speciated according to the conditions of the Baja Peninsula. Baja separated from mainland Mexico roughly 5 to 6 million years ago, according to tectonic maps and what they've told us. So really cool biogeography. There's the habitat of Echinopsis confinus. And it's got this warty structure on the fruits. I have no idea the adaptive benefits of that, why that lineage evolved that way. More habitat. This is Stenocereus gummosus, another really cool, they call it the galloping cactus because it'll form these, you'll get a stem that comes up 20 feet and then roots back into the ground at the end like a rainbow and then keeps on growing. You'll get a thicket of these things like 20 feet wide by 10 feet tall. Really wonderful plant. I'm growing some in my yard in Mission. Echinopsis confinus and Echinopsis sessalpinioides. This is a much more restricted one from Sinaloa, and it's actually endangered. Habitat destruction, agriculture, grazing, whatever. But you can see variations on a theme. Guaiacum angustifolium. I don't know, what's the common name for this? I don't even know it. What is it? Just guaiacon, yeah. You can see there's the population, and I'll show you at the end of this how to look all this stuff up on iNaturalist. It's pretty easy. So this, like many plants, it occupies West Texas and South Texas, despite the vast differences between West and South Texas. West Texas isn't as hot, cooler nighttime temps, less humidity. The reduced humidity is why the nights cool off more there. But you get a lot of plants like skeleton leaf guaiacum, Jatropha dioica, that grow in both places, but you can tell the ecotypes are different. The West Texas ecotypes are a little bit more evolved for aridity and a little hairier, thinner leaves, etc. We'll see that with Jatropha. So anyway, wonderful flowers here, 5 purple petals. You got the ovary in the center, 5 stamens. Here's Guaiacum sanctum from Dominican Republic. Caribbean islands and eastern Mexico. A lot of plants have this biogeographical pattern. They grow in the Caribbean, they grow in eastern Mexico because it's similar climates, hot and humid. But you can see it's got much broader leaves. It's not as adapted for humidity. The leaves are pretty waxy, but they're a much broader surface area. You see a broad surface area in a leaf, that's a good indication it probably didn't come from a super dry area. Whereas you see super narrow leaves, obviously much drier area. Other species that were encountered growing with that Guaiacum sanctum, these were literally like the 3rd or 4th photos in the camera roll after this one. These Cyclura iguanas, which are endangered and have a ecological relationship with Consolea moniliformis, these giant cacti. This is a baby. They can get like the size of an oak tree. A prickly pear that gets the size of an oak tree. I think that's Stenocereus in the background, Fimbriatus, forget. Really nice habitat. And this whole habitat is on like a 2 million year old coral reef. Like this is all fossilized coral right here. Guaiacum officinale. Doesn't look that much different from Guaiacum sanctum. And then Guaiacum coulteri. This is at the Oaxaca Botanic Garden, which if you get a chance to go, I recommend it. The tours are a little, they don't have anything labeled and they got a bouncer that follows you around. I think maybe some little old ladies were stealing cuttings at some point. which I can't blame them. Bless the abuelitas, you know? And take cuttings from a botanic garden, it's not that bad. But anyway, slightly different flower, really cool fruit shape on this, and this will of course turn red. You see a red fruit, it's a modification for what? Who knows? Bird dispersal, right. So they'll turn, this is a plant, this is a genus that evolved with birds. I think there's 5 species in the genus Guaiacum. This is the map of Coulteri. You could see it got stuck on this, you know, this is lowland Mexico, lower elevation than the central Mexican plateau. All of this part of, most of Mexico is obviously, a lot of people probably know, at 4,000 feet or above, 3,000 to 4,000 feet. 3,000 feet in central Mexico is really hot. That's when you get a lot of the cool cacti, desert territory, but it obviously goes up to, you know, 12,000 feet in some places too, but that lowland, you can see they got stuck here and speciated to the conditions of the west side of the Sierra Madre Occidental. Cordia bossieri, Texas olive. See, I know a couple common names. Right, wonderful plant, one of the few natives that's actually popular in mainstream horticulture down here, thank God. But there's quite a few species of Cordia. Here's Sebastina from Dominican Republic, also got that Caribbean biogeographical pattern. Boraginaceae is the family, and it's, if you touch a Cordia leaf, it's got that kind of scabbard leaf, kind of feels like sandpaper. Anaqua, Heredia anaqua, also has that same leaf texture. They're in the same family. Cordia aleodora from Mexico in Central America. And of course, these habitats, they probably get a little bit more rain than we do. They're in the tropics, so they've got that summer wet season, winter dry. This is a fun one, Thamnosma texana. Does everybody know these? What's it called?
Dutchman's Britches.
Oh my God, that is a horrible common name. Okay, Dutchman's Britches. I'm not knocking you. You know I love you, Drew. I'm just saying, it's, you know, I mean, I said wow. Anyway, it does look like a little, it looks like a little upside down butt. It's got those punctate glands in it. It's Rutaceae, the rue family, so it smells really good. I love encountering this. But before I encountered Thamnosma texana, before I came to know it, I knew this species, Thamnosma montana. Here's the habitat it grows in. This is a really wonderful remote place in the Mojave Desert I used to go to. You could see it's got, same thing, it's got those punctate oil glands, similar structure, but it's a woody shrub and it's got purple flowers. It's not a little herb. I wonder, this would probably, you could probably grow this here. I'd love to try. And then this was surprising. You don't normally get many plants because of how bird migration patterns work. You don't get many plants that are on both the east side of the Atlantic Ocean and the west side, you know, related plants, closely related, same genus. There's a couple, but not often. This, I was in Namibia with a friend. We were looking for a number of unrelated plants, and I touched this plant, and I said, I know that smell, and I looked at it, and I saw the little butt fruit, and I said, God, what? This is Thamnosma? There's a Thamnosma out here? And sure enough, it was Thamnosma africana, which was like, and it was like a robust herb. It was like 3 or 4 feet tall, some of them, growing in a really cool place with a bunch of other unique plants. There it is. I didn't get flower picks, unfortunately. Here's Moringa ovalifolia, one of the bottle trees. You know, Moringa, that's another common, like, abuelita plant. You see it in yards and stuff, but it's also a genus with dozens of species in it, dozens of variations on a theme. This is a succulent bottle tree, a sarcocaulescent tree. That was really cool. I had a bunch more photos, but I've only got so much time, and I'm probably going to blow the time limit as is. So here is Cyphostemma carorii, same habitat. That Thamnosma was at the base of this rock pile. This is in the grape family, Vitaceae. Cyphostemma is a huge genus of succulent grapes. Many, I mean, I don't know how many species there are. There's probably a few dozen, but either way, it's got, you know, you compare that leaf with like a Parthenocissus or something, which you get down here, like with some of those vining succulent grapes, you can kind of see the relation. Frankinia johnstonia, how many people know about this plant? Just got taken off the endangered species list. It's doing pretty well, I think, in recovery. This is in Starr County. it's got these really cool, this is how these are the fruits. So like the whole distal end, see that's a flower, it gets pollinated, the whole distal end of the shoot that it's on turns yellow, falls off, and those 4 leaves act like a little helicopter for wind dispersal, which was, you could see it happening here, really cool. Like these fruits are basically mature. The flowers are done, and this is the habitat, wonderful habitat, Starr County near Roma. Here's Frankinia chilensis, which has slightly more succulent leaves, lots of salt tolerance because it grows in a very salty desert due to the high evaporation rate and how dry it is, and similar flowers. There's the habitat. Again, just totally barren. And these are all Eulychnia cacti. There's a bunch of cool stuff growing right there. Yeah, Frankinias do well in salty desert areas. There's a few in Baja. This is on the UNAM campus in Mexico City. Manfreda, everybody knows Manfreda, hopefully. Well, they're like it's like a, perennial agave. Herbaceous perennial agave. The leaves can die back and it can just go dormant. But these were like 8 feet tall on the lava flows. All of the UNAM campus is on a basalt flow. Here's Manfreda pringlei from Oaxaca. High elevation, 7,200 feet, growing on a roadside at the edge of a pine forest. Oh wow, it looks like there's a cool oxalis back there I didn't even see before. But these flowers are moth pollinated, I believe. A lot of moth pollinated stuff. There, those anthers haven't opened yet. They got that beautiful maroon color. That's where it was. See, maps are really important. I always like to know what family it's in and where it grows, what's its distribution. Aenia limitaris, another rare one from the RGV. There's the fruits. I don't know if that's some sort of barbed mechanism for animal dispersal. There's the flowers, Malvaceae, the cotton family. Here's a variation on that from Tehuacan Valley in Puebla. See, it looks like lepidopteran, butterfly pollinated, or maybe even hummingbird pollinated. Giant Neobuxbaumia cacti in the background. God, there was a ton of good stuff from here. This is like 3,800 feet elevation. Tehuacan Valley is a pretty wonderful place. Lots of good stuff there. Some guy who studies this genus actually reached out to me. This is a huge genus. There's a couple herbaceous species in West Texas. Okay, Lophophora williams. Yeah, this is from Thorn Scrub Sanctuary, our 150-acre property in Jim Hogg. We just got our 501c3 listing as a nonprofit. I'm selling T-shirts. If anybody wants to purchase one, all the money goes straight to Thorn Scrub. I don't take any of it. It goes straight to Thorn Scrub. We have a feral pig problem. We have to drill a well. We need shade structure, et cetera. But if you want to buy a shirt, they're up there. I'm sorry to, capitalize this and, turn it into like a merchant hawking phenomenon. I apologize, and here's Lophophora diffusa, which is doesn't contain mescaline, probably contains some other toxic alkaloids, toxic and bitter alkaloids. This was in Querétaro. There was an astrophytum here too, really unique. Some of these, I don't know what happened to them. I think it was a bad drought in Mexico. This was from June of last year. I was with my friend Gabrielle. Actually, I was with a couple cactus nerd friends, and I couldn't get over these false peyotes. Looked like a mint chocolate donut that someone sat on, like someone left it in like the driver's seat of their Civic or something and sat on it. It was like, anyway. And they have white flowers, unlike the South Texas peyote. They've got white flowers. I'm not sure why the white flowered phenotype, what that's about. Normally you see white flowers, it means possibly moth pollination. I don't think that's what's going on here, but it was pretty peculiar. You can see they've still got that dense wax, but they've got a slightly different lobe structure, still got the trichomes at the areoles. Yeah, the pigs have been damaging a lot of cacti at Thorn Scrub, and they've definitely destroyed some peyote, but you'll see a lot that have like a bite out of them, and then they leave it because it tastes so bad. So those alkaloids, just like astrophytum and areocarpus, these spineless cacti develop these really toxic, bitter alkaloids. There's the habitat there. There's Hectia. I think this was Hectia glamourata in the background. 5 degrees latitude south of the Rio Grande Valley and 3,000 feet higher in elevation, but still thriving. The hectia diversity, if anyone knows what that is, it's like a spiny bromeliad, is nuts in Mexico. And then this is Opuntia, wow, what is it, dasyacantha, I think? Opuntia dasyacantha. It's really common in the Home Depot cactus. She's wandering. She's bored with me. This happens, you know. She's don't mind her. And so in that same habitat as that Lophophora was this Strombocactus disciformis. So I'm showing you relatives and then sympatric species because the habitat in many of these places was just so cool. A lot of people would see this and say it looks dry, it looks boring, it's a desert. But the more you know about it, it's like anything, the more you know, there's probably 17 species that are endemic to this tiny area, endemic to this soil type, need calcareous soils, have a whole, plethora of adaptations to deal with a place, growing in a place where plants shouldn't be able to grow. These are growing in a rock wall. All this black stuff is a living cyanobacterial crust. It's not dead, it's still alive, it's just waiting for rain. And when it gets wet, it turns like a dark green, starts actively metabolizing and photosynthesizing again. But in the meantime, while it's dormant, it's holding this whole rock wall together and all the soil on it, and probably helping some of these Strombocactus seeds germinate. Those plants they're probably 40 or 50 years old. They grow extremely slowly. Hermania texana, this time we got, I tend to be a talker, I tend to be a gabber. Hermania texana, I don't know if anyone knows this one. It tends to grow on sand. You get it in Zapata County, you get it on the sand sheet. I love it. It's a really cool genus. The odd thing about this is there's probably 120 species in this genus, but they're all in South Africa. There's 2 or 3 in the New World. How did they get there? I have no idea. How many millions of years ago? Like according to molecular clock dating? I don't know. I have a friend who studies the genus in South Africa. He's South African. I think he gave me an estimate like 10 million years or something. So 10 million years ago, some bird somehow, or a debris raft got a seed over here. Either way, Hermania texana. And here's Hermania inflata, also from Oaxaca, elevation 6,000 feet. Obviously going for hummer pollination. Another thing, we were just stopped at the side of a road. I said, what's that? That's cool. Let's stop the rental, get out, do an inspection. It turned out to be a Hermania. I had no idea. This is one of like 4 or 5 species in the New World, in the Americas. And that's where we were. We were coming down from the cloud forests of Oaxaca. Eredius species, they're going off right now. The parakeets love them. Boraginaceae, again, they got those scabbard leaves. Another trait of Boraginaceae is those scorpioid cymes. That kind of, this you can't see it so much in Heredia, but it's got this kind of like scorpion-like tail, the way the inflorescence is, the way the flowers are arranged. It's got a 2-branched style right there, 5 stamens, just like Cordia, which it's related to, same family. Only 3, this was kind of nuts to see. I have not seen any other species of Heredia because they're all in Asia and Africa. Only 3 species are native to the Americas. Here's Heredia rigida, called puzzle bush. In South Africa, you could see it's got probably really thick leaves, and it's got this really odd branching pattern, which I'm willing to bet is an adaptation to preventing herbivores from sticking their heads in there and totally denuding the plant. I've seen a lot of plants do that. They create like a cage, it's like this cage of these zigzag branches or jutting branches so that maybe the outer layer of leaves can get eaten, but the inner layer can't. And it seems to work. Heredia resinosa, scabbard leaves. This is native to Taiwan and the Philippines. Bird dispersed fruits again. This is one of my, Anak was one of my favorite valley plants. I used to hate seeing them. They would volunteer everywhere. I got tired of pulling them out. I still do pull them out sometimes, but if it weren't for them, there would be so few or so far less trees in the valley than there are. They volunteer so readily. And so key to all this is bird migrations. That's because how does a plant get across a huge ocean if it didn't evolve before plate tectonics separated everything? Debris rafts or birds. And now people, we transport invasive species everywhere. But if you look at bird migration patterns, you can see most just go north and south. They don't really go, especially across the Atlantic. And so that's kind of what helps keep these ecosystems separated and has kept them separated for at least 10 or 11 million years whenever the climate was last warm enough for to bring the stuff up to the higher latitudes. Okay, Karwinskaya humboldtiana. These are all the places that I've seen Karwinskaya humboldtiana. How much time we got left? You're gonna have to let me know, because I could talk. I go into a trance. Someone's gonna have to smack me. All right. Anyway, so there's all the places I've seen Karwinskaya. When I saw in the Tehuacan Valley, I was blown. I didn't know it was Karwinskaya. It looked like Karwinskaya slightly, but not quite. And there were bees all over it, even though it wasn't flowering. So I was wondering if it was producing extrafloral nectaries or something. Supposedly it doesn't. They were there for something, I don't know. But it looked remarkably different. And then here's the Baja population. This really speaks to the power of ecotypes. It's the same species, but they've been separated and isolated from each other long enough, and the climates that they're evolving in are different enough, whether it's different climate or different caste of pollinators and herbivores, that they look so much different. I mean, it's like that looks like a different species. It's wild. I wonder if you looked at the DNA, how stark the difference would be in some of the gene regions. But anyway, yeah, there you go. Karwinskaya humboldtiana, very toxic. But again, fruits that are very important for birds. See, this is what kind of had me tripped out a little bit, these little black dots. I wonder if that's some sort of, it was covered in bees and other insects too. I wonder if that is if they're getting something from the leaves, I don't know. And then the habitat was epic. That's where this was again like 4 or 5 photos after the one I just showed you. Neobuxbaumia tetetso with a nice little rainbow in the background. It's postcard. It's not. Can you see? Am I in your way? And this was Cephalosirius columna trahani. The cool thing about, well, it's Neobuxbaumia is in here too. Cephalosirius just looks like a totem pole, and Neobuxbaumia branches a little bit. The cool thing about Cephalosirius is the top of their stems bend over a little bit. Why would that be?
They follow the sun.
It's got to do with the sun, but what are they trying to protect? Well, what would they be trying to protect from that hot flowers? The flowers are on the shady side because they're diurnal flowering, so they flower away. They bend over a little bit, and it gives just enough shade to keep the flowers. You'll notice they all do that too. It's wild. I mean, you'll see a whole hillside with 300 of these things, and they're all bending the same way. So anyway, Jatropha dioica. What's the common name for this? What is it, leather stem or something? What is it? What is it? It is leather stem. Okay, yeah. That makes me think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know why, the Leatherface thing. I don't know. Just 80s horror movies. Anyway, so this is we're at the northern end of the range here. It's very widespread in Mexico. I mean, I was seeing it with Obregonia in Querétaro, and really wonderful plant. This is on Mary Peña's property, wonderful Mary Peña, with Varilla texana, asteraceae, and a ton of astrophytum and other cool cacti. And you see it's got these broad leaves. This is in Starr County. Here's the West Texas ecotype. See, much thinner leaves, right? Because it's much drier. The nights cool off a little bit more in West Texas, but it's much more arid, especially now. I mean, it's so dry. It's a really bad drought, like yuccas and creosotes are dying out there. But, so this is variety Graminia. This is on a property in West Texas. Rainier days. You can see the ocotillos leafed out. There's the flowers. And this is a population that's growing out of pure gypsum in Nuevo Leon with Yucca carnerosana and this very rare cactus that I think was only described in the last 30, 40 years, Geohintonia mexicana. The whole substrate is just sheetrock. It's just it's gypsum. It's totally wild. And gypsum is another type of geologic substrate that causes new plant species to evolve. It's so stressful to grow on that that it literally causes new species to evolve out of nearby ones that don't grow on gypsum. Okay, Yucca trichuliana, RGV native. Everybody knows this. Moth pollinated. It's one of the only like active pollination systems by where a moth actually takes a pollen grain and stuffs it in there and then oviposits too. So her larva will feed on some of the seeds, and in exchange, she's pollinating the plant. There's Yucca decipiens from Querétaro, another variation on a theme. God knows how old that is. It's the size of a house. It's all the same plant. It's just like, this was at a spot called Santa Barbara in Querétaro. Or was it Guanajuato? I can't remember. I don't know. All I know is we went for ice cream after this trip. It was really lovely. Saw a lot of cool, rare plants. Yucca filifera from Nuevo Leon. This is just 4 hours south of here at 6,000 feet near Galeana. And Yucca carnerosana, lucky enough to be there when they were all flowering. Carnerosana is normally just a single stem. You don't really see it branching. I would love to be there at night and see what kind of moths were flying around. Probably some really cool species of moths. And this is all, I think this is Pinus arizonica in the background, and then the whole hill is gypsum. Mortonia gregii, which is, you get it on rocky lomas in Stark County. It's got this cool imbricate, looks like almost snake scales, leaves, tiny white flowers, and it grows on these rocky lomas, like these rocky conglomerate lomas, like that. But just a few hours south of here, it's much more dominant. It's growing out of the sides of these upturned sedimentary layers that have been upturned, just like if you were to take a carpet on a hardwood floor and push it against a door jamb. The carpet goes like that. That's basically what happened to this topography here. It just went like that. There was force from the southwest that pushed it up, and it's created this really cool terrain, as you can see here, with it's this endemic agave, albopolosa. This species is only known from this region. It was only described, I don't know what, 20 or 30 years ago. It's an agave that's got little white tufts of hair on the ends of the leaf blades. And there's a big Mortonia growing out of that. Was this I think this is a hectea? I don't know. It hurt, though. The hecteas there hurt. Agave bracteosa, that's another really cool one. I mean, the hanging rock gardens of the Sierra Madre, this is like right outside Monterrey. You could go there for a day trip. It would be a long day, but those hanging rock gardens are incredible. Here's Mortonia utahensis from the Mojave Desert, which has really taken the leaves and embellished them. But you could see it's got the same flower structure, because flowers are what are most evolutionarily conserved. Their flowers are what give away what family a plant is in. It's the first thing you look for when you're trying to identify a plant you don't know. This is the habitat, agave utahensis, grown there as well. This is all really old limestone of the Mojave Desert. Very sketchy, very easy to fall, as I've done quite a few times. Yeah, these are highly coveted by poachers now. I took this photo, and it was probably 2016, and it's become this thing. A lot of them get poached and then sent to Japan. But you could see that Mortonia in the background right there. And Echinocerius pentalophus. I didn't know this was a subspecies, the one that we get in the valley, which is, really, it's one of those plants that's really easy to, make cuttings of and share, give away to friends, whatever. Totally stunning when it lights up and blooms. This is the Chihuahua Woods. And this is Echinocerius pentalophus, subspecies pentalophus from Querétaro. This was grown with the false peyote and the strombocactus. I had no idea. I mean, I saw it and I was like, what is this? This is pentalophus? Okay, it looks slightly like it, but confirmed by molecular work, they're more closely related to each other than anything else. So variations on the theme. So this is the whole thing that I get to is, and I'll end it shortly, but this is why I try to avoid using common names. I want to learn genus. I'll use common names sometimes. I think it's fun. It gets easier in some cases, but in a lot of times, just learning the genus name does yourself so much. It does yourself a service. You're learning You're learning botany. You learn because a genus will have other species in it. You know that genus name, you'll see a related species. You'll know it's in the same genus. You may not know the species, but you could say, okay, this is a Iridia, or this is a Aristolochia, or whatever. Whereas if you use the word swanflower, that doesn't tell you anything about it. I don't mean to demonize them. I'm just trying to encourage people. Don't sell yourself short. Don't be intimidated by Latin nomenclature. For a lot of things like birds, common names are fine. That's what's used most of the time. But for plants, we use genus. Always ask what family. It's worth trying to learn. You will learn a lot about the world around you by learning something as simple as a genus name or asking what family it's in. Because plants are epically more diverse than animals. Like the sunflower family alone, how many species of Helianthus are there? And also, common names can just be misleading. Everything that's called a cedar in North America isn't a cedar. It's not a true cedar. It's misleading. The genus Cedrus is only native to Europe and the Middle East and Northern Africa. So, someone had once said to me, they were like, oh, well, scientific names can be a form of gatekeeping. The fact I'm using them is a sign that it's not a form of gatekeeping. I'm a slob. I don't have any formal schooling in botany. I just learned this stuff by getting interested in it. So I really encourage people, at least learn a genus. You don't got to learn a species name. You don't got to, and don't worry about pronunciation. Don't worry about sounding stupid. Latin's a dead language. It doesn't matter. Anyone who's going to correct your Latin deserves a kick in the shins. So anyway, just say no to common names. All right, just learn the genus at least, right? So there's a few more layers of taxonomy, but the ones we're mostly concerned with: family, genus, species. And then order two, once you get families down, you start noticing traits, shared traits among orders. So hopefully everybody knows everything's grouped in genus and family according to the level of interrelatedness. So the way you can do what I just did in terms of learning, if you're curious, you want to explore botany using iNaturalist, go to the Explore feature on the page. Type in, like if you want to see, there's, 5 or 6 species of Lophophora. Type in Lophophora, let it suggest, select it, and then you can type in county, province, state, continent, country, whatever, and you'll get a list. 4 species, etc. 4 species in San Luis Potosi, 703 observations. Map, grid, so you can literally map species and look at where they grow, and look at this species grows on this side of this mountain range, and this species grows on this other side of the mountain range, and maybe gets a little bit more humidity. Oh, look at that. Well, this species that grows in the drier area has hairier leaves or thinner leaves, and this species that grows on the more humid side has broader leaves, whatever. This is what makes learning botany and evolution fun. So pay attention to that map and grid area. Grid will give you a list of all the species. Map will tell you where they've been located. Interesting, like with peyote, you could see it's occurring. Most of the populations aren't, looking at a satellite, occur on this west side of what's a marked change in the soil type, right? And if you look at a geologic map of Texas, you see that same thing. All the geologic layers of different rocks and ages, occur in bands that basically parallel the coast and radiate out from it. It's really interesting. You start realizing how everything's connected. Not just the soil, but the pollinators, the ecology, the specificist insects that use those plants as a host plant, etc. Ebenopsis, same thing. Type in Ebenopsis, comes up with 3 species. You get a map of these different populations. Confinus, Ebano, and then Caesalpinioides. I think that was it. Oh yeah, the last thing, the taxonomy is also worth paying attention to. I use iNaturalist so much. You got to take it with a grain of salt because it's open. Anyone can dump any observation in there, and it doesn't have to be correct. Sometimes they're wrong. If it's research grade, it's most likely correct. But if it's not, it might be incorrect. But either way, you could see all the different levels. Remember, I said we're concerned with genus, family, order, but some families, like the pea family, are so big it's got subfamily, tribe, etc. That stuff gets interesting too, because if you want to look up what ebony is most closely related to, you can go to tribe Ingiae, the Inga tribe. Ingas are really delicious. Ecuadorian, they're Amazonian, they're Central America. It's a little too hot for them here, and they need a lot more water. You get them in Veracruz too, but Inga edulis produces bean pods that are like 3 feet long and totally delicious. They call it ice cream bean. So anyway, and you can see all the genera. Caliandra, that's another cool one. We get a couple Caliandra in the valley. So anyway, that's it. I'm done pushing botany on you. I'm done. That's it. But hopefully you guys get a little more curious about that. So any questions?
Do you have any pipeline for sale?
I don't. No, I just gave cuttings to Mike Heap though, so he should have some in hopefully Mike Heap in 3 or 4 weeks. The caterpillars just totally decimated my yeah.
So have you been out to Big Bend? I know you posted just recently. I didn't actually read it in full about that new species that they found.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Is there a pretty heavy distribution of that just was in a location that wasn't found, or is it?
Well, it's an annual, so it only comes out. I mean, most of the time it's just laying in seed form in a seed bank. And it only comes out when it rains. And so there was another population discovered near Sanderson. This lady had photos from 2019. And it appears legit. It's the same thing, but those are the only 2 populations known. So Mike Powell, the curator of the Sewell Ross Herbarium, grew it out from seed, and he just had it in the herbarium last week. I was in there dropping some stuff off, and it's like probably the only living specimen of that that species that's up right now. The rest are just laying dormant in the seed bank. But yeah, it's cool. It's nuts that. I mean, it just shows you how understudied certain regions can be. Most people don't pay attention to plants anyway. And second, especially in these really remote areas, Deb Manley was just out walking around out there and stumbled upon it and happens to take pictures of everything she sees. So, yeah, that was pretty exciting. There's probably more. I know there's an undescribed Rudbeckia species on the sand sheet that's probably 2 hours away from here that no one's described, So, anybody else? Yeah.
Hi, I just came back from Mexico, visiting one of the modern sanctuaries, and a lot of the guys said that there's no milkweed near the sanctuary in Mexico, and then the closest is because we saw mating, not mating there, and the first milkweed species are the South Texas. And I looked up on the naturalist, and there's some like a native milkweed, like naughty milkweeds in Mexico.
Yeah.
Have you observed any monarch laying eggs around that area, or they really actually wait to lay eggs till they come to South Texas?
I'm not sure. There's a ton of milkweeds in Mexico. I know that. There's some really cool ones. I remember seeing this one. It was what was it? It was.
One that was blooming in February was a naughty milkweed, and I thought that was perfect for guests to come, on the way they mate and they lay eggs, and that's one of the generations I was speaking, but all of the local guys said that they don't lay eggs in Mexico, and it's just kind of, for me, it's hard to believe. I don't know if it's because of lack of education that they really don't know about native milkweeds there, or,
Yeah, it is. Well, not everybody's an entomologist. Like I'm a horrible person to ask this question because I don't know. It could be. Maybe they just are living on nectar because it's only the caterpillars that need the eggs. But yeah, I mean, it could just be they're living on nectar and then they wait till they get further north. But there are plenty of milkweeds in Mexico. This is Melantha. This is in Oaxaca. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, though. I'm willing to bet they probably, I don't know.
What about the tropical milkweed? Are they from Mexico? Are they from South America? Or have you seen that?
I think Curicivica is from Mexico, yeah. People demonize that, but I don't think it's that bad down here because the valley is so much warmer and hotter than most of, the northern U.S. latitudes.
Thinking when I went there, all the tropical milkweeds are there,
Yeah.
And we saw them in some people's gardens, and they are not really native there.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many species there are in North America. I think there's like 300 species of Asclepias, but but yeah. Sorry, I can't answer your question more thoroughly. Anybody else? Yeah.
Do you know plumeria and other flowers that produce oil? Do they only produce oil, or do they do oil and nectar?
I think only oil. Because that's a tall order calorically to produce nectar and oil, so I think a lot of them only produce oil. And then there's an orchid in El Cielo that just produces fragrance because it's pollinated by those euglossine bees that just collect fragrant oils. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know.
Do you know if Parkinsonia produces oil? Because I've seen citrus bees on Parkinsonia.
I'm not sure. There's probably, or they could. Maybe they got to eat too, so maybe they're just collecting nectar off that. I don't know. But I know for the oil they feed their young, that's what they hit chromaria for, which is wild to me because that seems like it'd be pretty easy. You know, one domino falls, the whole thing comes down ecologically. So, but they're still around. Chromaria seem to do fine, but they do have really weird flowers. I mean, you could tell their flowers are specialized for something. And they're hemiparasitic, which I forgot to mention, which is another weird thing. They parasitize other plants like chromarias do. But anybody else? No. All right, I got kill your lawn signs, and I got Walker's Manahot seedlings. My friend James just lost his job, so I'm selling those. He grew those Walker's Manahot. That's why they're $15. If they were mine, I'd be selling them for cheaper, but all the money goes to him, so that's why I'm selling them for $15. If you're broke and you want one, we can negotiate. But I got 6 Walker's Manahots back there for sale, some Thorn Scrub shirts, some books, and some kill your lawn signs. So thanks for listening to me ramble.